Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Dee Dee Eberle of Your Wild Pantry Meal Solutions. Dee Dee, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
No problem. Super excited to have you on. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Dee Dee so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing. And Dee Dee is the owner of Your Wild Pantry Meal Solutions. She works with the busiest people in the world to help them get an easy, stress-free, and healthy meal on the table so they can spend time where it matters most. Through her business offering, she provides concierge level meal prep, pantry management, cooking classes, and guided meal prep to clients virtually and in person. Dee Dee works with clients to find the best fit for specific diets, food allergies, and grocery budgets, offering help beyond basic meal planning that includes customized grocery shopping and in-home meal preparation services. Dee Dee, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I am. That in-person stuff, we'll definitely talk about what that looks like now.
Exactly. Because I'm sure there's been a little bit of shifting and changing here and there. But before we jumped into that, I wanted to kind of rewind the clock a little bit. Could you take us through your CEO story, how you got started, and what led you to do all those things you've been doing?
So yeah, never in a million years did I think that CEO would be next to my name.
Next to Dee Dee.
So my background is in disability and aging. I worked in the nonprofit sector for 20 years. I have my undergrad in special ed and nonprofit management, and then my master's in public administration and healthcare. And so I did that for 20 years. My husband was in the military, so we moved around, and I was fortunate to be with a nonprofit for some time that allowed me to telecommute a couple of different times. But one of the last times that we were getting ready to move away from the DC area for the umpteenth time, because that's what the military does to us. Right. We get voluntold to go to our next whatever, right. Our next adventure. I was really burned out. And so we moved back to Texas for the third time, because apparently once isn't enough. I have a lot of opinions on that, but right. And my husband's like, just do something else. Do something else. Okay, I've been doing this for 20 years, right. But I'm just going to do something else. And so long story short, I started a food blog. I was bored. I'm an extrovert, which is not hard for most people to figure out about me. And I needed an outlet, and I like food. And so I just kind of taught myself to build a WordPress site and kind of started dumping recipes on there. Never really monetized it, but kind of like, And then I started working with an organic food company, providing healthy meal solutions to people. And it was more of a teach the person to fish model, where I was showing people how to do those things. We always knew we were going to come back to the DC area when my husband retired from the military. And so when we did that 2.5 years ago, I really kind of foresaw what I wanted this to be. So I really launched Your Wild Pantry at that point, providing that concierge level support and service that is more common in larger metropolitan areas like the DC area. Busy people means they need services. And so I began offering customized meal solutions for people who have dietary restrictions, difficult likes, dislikes, picky eaters, and everything in between. Now, caveat, I am not a dietitian. I am not a nutritionist. I'm not a medical professional. But I am somebody with autoimmune disorder that has figured out over the years that clearly I'm not going to live forever. And so eating better was probably not a horrible idea. And how could I also then use that experience to help other people? And so I'm where the rubber meets the road. People work with a dietitian or work with a doctor or work with a medical professional that says, you should eat this way. And they say, oh, yep. And then nothing happens. They're like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know how to do it. So I'm kind of that bridge the gap. So I will work with folks I was working with a potential client this morning. They have nut allergies in the family. There are 6 people in the household, 2 of which are vegetarian. Mom and dad are really trying to get healthier and trying to figure out, with a couple of other restrictions, how to do this. High protein, lots of proteins and vegetables, not a lot of carbs, not a lot of other sides, and go. And so I'm working on a draft that would be breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a couple of snacks a day that really help people meet that. Here's the nutritional stuff you're looking for, and here's what that looks like. Here's the recipes. Here's the grocery lists. Can I order your groceries for you and have them delivered to your home? And then providing kind of a guided meal prep that's now virtual. because now we're not going into people's homes.
Right.
And so I've launched that kind of service, that wraparound service, in what I call meal prep pods. And so people who are all trying to eat the Mediterranean diet, or all trying to eat, with an autoimmune protocol diet in mind, or they're all trying to do low carb or whatever that is, so that there's a sense of community. They're getting that support. They're being given an opportunity to also shop their own pantry and shop their own freezer and refrigerator, given that we've all overstocked everything. How do you use those things up? And do it in a way that's going to take the stress off of meals, which everyone's having to cook all of the time right now for all of the people. And so that's very long story short as to how I went from one career to now being the CEO and growing this company and providing those services in a manner that really hopefully meets people where they are.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And having been to one of your virtual events as well, too, just the creativity that's required to be able to kind of, make that transition. And I think you spoke to something that I think we often forget so much in business. It's kind of that human aspect of business. And obviously, how to, for example, run a business, you need to do this, that, and the third, but to actually execute that is another story. So the same thing when you're talking about, okay, you have this, maybe nutrition adjustment you have to make, or how exactly does that happen? And of course, okay, you can't eat this, you can't eat that, but just that community that you spoke to, the actual ways that you're able to do it, maybe even doing it in a time like this, that's already stressful. How do you do that? So that's why I love how you do that rubber meets the road, create that connection so that not only do you know what to do, but you can actually execute on that as well too.
Yes. And you get the support to do it. So then, if you're in this meal prep pod that is eating a certain way, and there's several other people doing the same thing, you get a sense of what's working, what's not working, what are the tweaks that have to happen, and what stresses are you guys experiencing? Are these meals helping? Are they not helping? How do we help solve those things so that it's not just about feeding physically, it's feeding everything. It's a little more holistic approach to feeding the soul. So it sounds very cheesy. It's like, I think I need a bumper sticker.
There you go.
But yeah, that kind of a thing, I think that personalized component is important because it's about individuality, but it's also about individuality knowing that you're not the only individual dealing with this.
Yeah.
So I think my background in disability really still helps me focus that way, because in disability, it's all very individualized. You're about an individualized plan. You're about measuring what the goal is and how you're going to get there and what that looks like. And how are you strategic in building those skills so that the outcome is hopefully eventually stress-free. And so I think that I take that and apply it to this kind of a thing as well.
It's funny you said that, because I was definitely going to ask you just if you saw that kind of overlap or that transition, because I almost feel, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, if you find this, with your clients or even in your background, that a lot of times it's even more difficult when you're trying to, achieve a goal or do something where maybe it feels as if nobody else is doing it. By having that opportunity to be part of that pod, knowing you're not by yourself, even though it still might be difficult, you're more likely to succeed because you're not going at it alone. You have other people to lean on, to talk to kind of, bounce ideas off of. And I feel like it increases likelihood of being successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think everyone is so isolated right now in their own ways. You're isolated together. But when you can just kind of reach out and just have a brief conversation with somebody that goes, been there, done that, got the t-shirt,
Right.
got it.
And the bumper sticker.
Yeah, exactly. Got the bumper sticker. And so there's that sense of camaraderie and, that we're all in this together. Whether it's, all the way across the country, because that person is, lives over here and you're over here, but it's that idea of connectedness. And food brings people together, whether food is because it's just a bodily requirement, or because we enjoy it, or because it's for health reasons, whatever it is. Food brings people together. And I want that to be at the core of what this is, whether it's I'm helping somebody who lives by themselves or someone who has a full household, that those needs around meals that make you feel good, literally and figuratively, is common. I mean, we all have that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you mentioned that, of how it brings all of us together, because sometimes we can kind of forget that. But, get around I always, some of my most favorite times personally have always been around, family getting together around the dinner table and just, laughing, enjoying really great food and all of those things. So I'm sure there's definitely a lot of people that can relate with that. So I love how you bring everybody together. So I know you touched on it a little bit. Did you have anything additional as far as like how you serve your clients you wanted to touch on it? And I wanted to ask too, like, what do you feel potentially is your secret sauce, or the thing you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
Well, I mean, what sets me apart, I think, is that nobody else is doing what I'm doing. Not in this particular part of the niche of the meal solutions world.
Mm.
And everyone knows the different meal kit services, or people who are personal chefs, or prepared meal. That's covered. That's covered. And then there's the whole Pinterest crowd of the black hole that is, I love Pinterest myself, but like Pinterest is a black hole where you just get sucked in, and 5 hours later you're still looking for best way to make macaroni and cheese, and now you don't even know what you're in there for. And
Right.
so how do you take the stress out of it, those search functions, those many tabs that you have open in your head,
Mm.
and say, okay, let's focus. Let's still give you opportunity for choice and for variety and all those things, but how do I teach you to fish, but at times also fish for you? So that's where, sometimes I will order, if I'm working with an individual client, not in the pods right now, but an individual client, I'll order the groceries and have them delivered to their house. And as I mentioned, I think the one session that you were in on, I was doing a pantry
Right.
management,
Mm-hmm.
a service called Pantry Genie, where you get on for 30 minutes on a FaceTime, and people show me their pantry, and they show me what they've overstocked and what they've understocked and what they wish they had more of, or what they forgot that this was in there, and how to use it up, and their freezer and their refrigerator, and what does that all look like. And then after 30 minutes, we go away, and the genie grants them 3 wishes of recipes that do not require another grocery trip at all. You have 3 meals that you didn't realize were right in front of you. You can use what you have on hand. And the hope then is that becomes its own lead magnet of, great. After that, you want a healthier pantry? Let's talk about that, because I work with a distributor that provides healthier meal solution options. So how do we do that? How do we help you actually turn that into a planned pantry that means planned meals as well? Less waste, less duplicates, and a little more purposeful. And hopefully that helps people feel like they've got a little more control. So I think that's why what I do is so specific. And so, going back to what we were saying, is that personalized nature, that individualized nature. I don't know if that's really a secret sauce, but I hope that that's something that I'm providing that is different than just click here, click here, click here, have it delivered. That I can provide some interaction and suggestions that allow meals and everything that goes with that to be a little more fluid.
Yeah, and I love that you used the word holistic earlier, because I think so many times people forget all those different aspects. And as you said, I think you mentioned, like, there's somebody that might say, hey, click here, click here, click here to buy whatever you need, but then you don't get all those other aspects. And I don't know if you find that, in your background, and being able to kind of understand those aspects and put all that together. But I think it's not just meals. And it sounds like you understand that, and you understand it's not just time, but how can you leverage all those things and create a really great experience each time that's customized for the family that needs help in figuring out, how the bulk buy and how that happens, to the person that's on the go all the time and having to figure out, what am I going to eat tonight, because I've been running around all day.
Well, and I try to, like, what I'm doing with some of these pods is I go into it just assuming that people don't have time, you
Mm.
know, and that, so a lot of times the dinners are planned to be leftovers the next day for lunch, because
Mm.
most of us are still at home, or we're not going out to restaurants as much during the day, even if we are going into an office. And so it's the cook once, eat twice opportunity, and giving tips and tricks around. So, what if throughout this week, uh, there's a certain grain that, we're going to use quinoa 3 different ways. Well, let's batch cook the quinoa and you're going to get it ready to do these different things. So that, again, less time, still healthful, still flavorful, but going to taste different and be different no matter, how we use it. And that's what grains generally are. They're a vehicle for lots of other things. And so, and how do we make those healthier swaps? Rice is great, but white rice is not always what people are looking for. So is cauliflower rice something that works? Or are we looking at farro, or like I said, the quinoas, or the different kinds of things that can kind of get that similar texture that people might be looking for, but they're a little more healthful. And to just say, consider these swaps, consider these suggestions, and how do I help you utilize that in a way that makes sense?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I love how you said, going into it, assuming that people, may not have time, because I think that time is one of the most valuable resources. And I think understanding that at the heart of it, that you're trying to make people's lives more efficient, and that extra time that you kind of buy back, I guess you can say, or invest back, you really get that opportunity to do the things, as I said when I read your bio, that you really want to do, and really that you feel bring the most value. So absolutely love that. And I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Oh, effective and efficient. I miss those. No, I'm kidding. So disclosure, I have ADHD.
Uh-huh.
So those things can be a challenge for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, for me, given the nature of what I do, is even I fall into it's 5 o'clock, what the heck's for dinner? Which is a hilarious irony, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, Dr. Heal Thyself.
Yeah, Cowboys kids.
I mean, yeah, so and so my hack is taking my own advice. And I think that it's really easy when you're in a leadership position, whether you're leading just yourself because the company's me, or you're leading others, it's that practice what you preach to a certain extent. Do as I say, not as I do. You don't want it to be that. You want it to be, when I say plan your pantry, I need to plan my pantry. Like when I need to take my own advice, because I know from my clients that it's great advice. They tell me, like, oh my gosh, where have you been? This is so great. I love it. Well, if everyone else says it's great, well, then I should be taking advantage of that greatness as well. And so, so I think that hack it's not really a hack. It's just taking my own advice and reminding myself of that. My other hack, especially right now, when we're all not out and about, is trying to be better about time blocking. And I am not good at it. Disclosure, I'm not. But the one thing that I have committed to is that unless something really crazy happens, I do yoga 3 times a week. And it is on my calendar. And I've learned to even block time right before it, so I don't go, oh no, I don't have time now to get on there. I'm committed to that. And I find that centers me so that I can be more focused as well. So that self-care, that phrase that's so popular, whatever that is to be able to do that in a way that's going to help me be more productive.
Nice. I absolutely love those hacks. And I definitely think the first one definitely was a hack. And I feel like they even overlap, because I think, to me, what I hear is so often, especially in a lot of these positions that we have, as you mentioned, leadership positions, and doing so many things for everybody else, we often will forget the most important person, which is often ourselves, and forgetting that if we don't have anything left to give from our cup, then we can't serve anybody else. So whether that be, as you mentioned, yoga, or just time blocking, so you're taking care of everything, throughout the day, or if you're really great at what you do, you're providing pantry services, doing that for yourself so that you can also make sure that you are able to be your best self to your clients. I think it's something that we forget so often when we're on the go and we're trying to give, that we don't take care of ourselves nearly as much. So, whether it's keeping your cup full, oxygen mask on, or self-care, as you touched on, it all something that we often will jump over and overlook.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. So now I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget. So this could be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. It might be something you would tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
So I've been working with a business coach for better part of 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
She's amazing. And she has definitely made sure that I didn't just, when COVID hit, go, that's it, I give up, close up shop.
Right.
She's like, oh, you lost it. No. But recently she said something, in which she admitted, she goes, this isn't her nugget, but it was from somebody else. But it really resonated to me. It was trust, try, tinker.
Mm-hmm.
And that has become my mantra, because I think a lot of times we get so into the fear, do it scared, that trust that what you're doing is in the right direction. Trust yourself. Give it a try. Pull the freaking trigger and tinker from there. And I tell you what, that has made, in the last 6 weeks in particular, has made a huge difference for me. I can feel that anxiety. I'm like, oh, it's not going to be right. And it's not going to be perfect. She goes, no perfect. Doesn't exist. No perfect. Trust, try, tinker. And that's been a really useful nugget for me the last 6 weeks-ish. And I can feel the difference. It's a mindset shift of myself. It's to stop myself in that moment of, oh, I can't do it, to, you know what? And it's funny because, we give our advice to everybody else, and taking it ourselves is very difficult. Is, 70% solution. 70% solution is okay. Unless it's a life or death situation, right. It's okay. I mentioned that my background was in the nonprofit sector and strategic planning. It's a big thing in the nonprofit sector in particular, let a business, and strategic planning is great. And a plan can look really great and you've worked really hard on it, and then you don't do it. Mm-hmm. And a year later or 2 years later, you dust it off and, well, nothing happened. Right. And so that idea that a strategic plan, just like business, and in COVID, we know that more than ever, is that it's a living, breathing thing. And you trust it, try it, and tinker. And that's what I've been doing.
Nice.
So
I absolutely love that. And I don't know if she called it the 3 T's. I want to call it the 3 T's.
You can call it
I'll call it the 3 T's.
She's funny. She'll tell you, no, I'll tell you where I got it from. It's a certain person. I don't want to claim it. Right. But yeah, it's just one of those where it just kind of hit and resonated. Yeah. So
it's extremely powerful. And I'm glad you touched on that COVID piece, because I think so many times, especially when you do something that's really great, if you really provide really great products and services, and obviously the landscape has changed. And I think a lot of times when landscape changes, as it will again, even in the future, that's the only constant of change. We have to be able to, trust, try, and tinker, and understand that, and realize that not only does it provide us an opportunity to maybe reinvent our business and do our business in a different way, or pivot, or whatever word we might use, but I think too, it's also something we often forget about some of the most successful people, the most successful businesses, that it wasn't ever a straight road, and they tried, and tinkered in order to get to where they are. And if we remember that and we understand that and we do that, then that helps us to potentially get there as well.
Well, I mean, I mentioned the meal prep pods. That would have never come to be if it had not been for COVID. Mm. Because, at the end of the day, I am one person. I can only be in one person's home at a time. And my goal was to, scale the business and bring in other people to be able to do that and do it elsewhere. But at the end of the day, I'm still just me. And until they figured that cloning thing out, that was going to be it. Mm. And all of a sudden, this has opened up an opportunity that the ROI on my time is also important. Mm-hmm. And to be able to say that I can now serve and support people anywhere, because it's all virtual. And because whether people liked it before COVID or not, virtual is here. Yeah. And we're all in it. And so if there was a way for me to use that as an opportunity to explore something I wouldn't have explored before, I feel like this is an opportunity for Your Wild Pantry that I absolutely never would have considered doing. It would have never even crossed my mind. Mm. Sad but true.
Yeah, but I think that's a lot of times, to me, like that's what I've always felt as one of the best characteristics of really successful people is not necessarily always, being ahead of the option, but being willing to trust, try, and tinker their way to success. Because I think so many
Now is
people,
the thing.
there you go, the three T's, because I won't say it three times fast. But with that being said, it's just so important to be able to have that kind of in your entrepreneurial CEO DNA to be able to do that, because you will have to continue to evolve. You will have to test out new ideas. But if you always, strategically plan as you touched on and never actually start executing and evolving and changing from that, then you really don't have anything. And it will be really hard to continue to kind of evolve throughout, the business life, I guess you can say.
So in my previous life in the nonprofit world, I did strategic planning for state legislative campaigns in the nonprofit segment. And the structure that we used for strategic planning was all about planning in the right order. There's that ready, aim, fire. And which in a lot of ways is kind of trust, try, tinker, to be honest. But ready, aim, fire, and we'd have groups, and we've all seen this, we've all done it, is, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready. And then there's never aim and fire. And then you have other people who get to the aim and they aim, oh, no, wait, I'm going to go this way. No, I'm going to, no, aim, and nothing. And then you have others that are just fire, 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 fire. And there's none of the other ready aim. And so it's just a buckshot approach of, what's happening? What do we hit? And so I have to remind myself that it's a process for a reason. It might be boring, but it's really important. And if you're jumping ahead to fire, or jumping ahead to tactics, you haven't considered what your bandwidth is. You haven't considered what your capacity is. You haven't considered, what your resources are. And those are changing every day for everybody right now. And it's being willing to, again, I hate the P word, the pivot. It's like the word of the year.
Yes.
But you have to be willing to pivot quickly, but not so much that you throw yourself off balance. And so trying to take all of those things that I've told people over the years to heart and remind myself in those moments of, oh dear God, what just happened? How do I make the best of that? And how do I do that in a way that still serves my clients? Because at the end of the day, it's not about me. It is not about me. It is about them. And so all of those things together are kind of how I try to quickly in my ADHD brain, like roll through all of those and go, okay, now I can be smarter about what my next steps are and what I do and how I do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it always helps when you have that framework and you understand that framework, you can definitely, go back from there. So I'm definitely sure a lot of people can definitely relate to that and create and execute their 3T strategy as well. So now I would ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Dee Dee, what does being a CEO mean to you?
It's stressful. It's, I'm going to go back to the nonprofit example. For years, people would say, oh, when are you going to be an executive director of your own? I'm like, never. I never, ever wanted to be an executive director. No. I was like, I know my strengths and my areas of need. I don't like to say weakness, my areas of need. I don't want to do some of those things. And I realized that that's fear. That was fear talking. That was anxiety and doubt about certain skill sets that I didn't feel like I was ever going to be able to do well. And so I wasn't going to do them at all. And so I think being a CEO, and specifically a CEO from the entrepreneurial end of that, is, and to be a CEO of something that you're starting from scratch is very different than taking over for something that's already there. Both have their benefits, but it's different. I think that it's about every single day conquering fear. Every day, many times a day. And it's about, again, trusting that I'm not a fraud. that whole,
imposter syndrome.
Oh, thank you. There it is. I'm like, there it is. I mean, yes, absolutely imposter syndrome. And reminding myself, like, okay, if I have my little doubts, pull it together. Mm-hmm. This is the right direction. And so being a CEO is about fear, about being fearful, about managing fear, anticipating fear, and getting in front of fear.
That's extremely powerful. Yeah, that's extremely powerful. And I think so many times, like, you mentioned the word imposter syndrome. I think so many times we feel that. And I think that a lot of times we don't give ourselves credit for how great we are. And we can beat ourselves up probably worse than anybody else. And largely because of that, we kind of stop ourselves before we get going. We stop ourselves before we take action because we have that fear, but it might manifests itself in so many different ways. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I don't have enough resource. I don't have this. I don't have that. When a lot of times it comes down to that fear. So I love that definition because it gets to really, I think, the heart of what you need to have in order to be successful and to continue to evolve when times change is to be able to say, okay, things aren't exactly how I want it to be. I may not have all the answers, but I might have the 70%, and I can take those steps in order to kind of see that momentum start to grow. And I don't think it's something that's talked about nearly enough. So I appreciate you for bringing it to light.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
It is a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a real thing that can manifest itself in so many different ways. But again, if you have awareness of it, you know that it might come, yourself, especially too, which is probably one of the most valuable things you could do. Then you can start to, conquer and at least work on it on a regular basis and flex out that fear muscle. So Dee Dee, truly appreciate that definition. And I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you and find out about all the awesome things that you're working on.
So I think what people need to know is that it's all going to be okay. Like we're all going to get through this. And if that means that you now are, because you panicked at the beginning of the pandemic and you have 8 cases of beans, it's going to be okay. Come on, people out there who are listening, they know I'm right.
They know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. But if you have too many beans and you don't know what to do with them, then perhaps we should chat. So people can reach me a couple of different ways. They can reach me via my website, which is yourwildpantry.com. And like business, like the world, it is an ever-evolving thing at the moment. Or they can reach me at info@yourwildpantry.com. Or they can give me a call, and the number is 703-342-9605. All ways to reach me. And on my website there, on the contact us section, people can schedule a free 30-minute chat with me. Kind of what do you need? What are you looking for? What are the opportunities that are there for them? What fits best for them? So they can schedule easily via a link there as well. But I'm excited about being able to, like I said, bridge that gap between what people are telling you should do and actually being able to do it, and connecting you with ways to do that in a more healthful way, while being honest that I'll hook you up with other medical professionals on those if that's what is needed. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to help you do what you need to do.
That's extremely powerful. And we will definitely have the links and information in the show notes, but I definitely appreciate that, Dee Dee. So many times, when we're trying to go from A to Z or A to B or even B to C, so on and so forth, we often forget that we can reach out to help. We can have people, help us to get to that level. And I think that's one of the things we forget in business, obviously, when we're talking about nutrition as well too. So I appreciate you being that person to help out as far as bridging that gap. So those, actions that people want to take are actually able to take. And of course, to make sure that they can leverage and use all of those means as well too. So I truly appreciate you again, Dee Dee, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Gresh. Have a great one.